Hi, everybody, and welcome back to RHAP's coverage of Australian Survivor Redemption. My name is Mike Bloom, talking about episode 16, and it was a sweet 16 as new week, new target, it seems. One particular person was blanching at the outcome, but I think the rest of us were quite excited to see all the shenanigans that went down. And of course, I am joined by the true master of shenanigans, especially around these parts, Chappell. Here we are in a post-Mark society.
I thought I was the master of shenanigans, but this cast has me beat. Mike Bloom, what are we doing? This is crazy. Man, I can't stop smiling. I don't know what to say. I was sitting here, I was just like, I was in awe of what I've witnessed over the last few weeks, and I'm thinking this run is incredible. These last 6 or 7 episodes in a row have just been a month, a mess. Everything has been everywhere. Nothing is predictable, or if it is predictable, it's still entertaining. And I don't know. I'm looking at these last 2 seasons of Survivor AU as well, and thinking this is an incredible run of seasons of Survivor. If they stick the landing this season, obviously we have a lot more people to go. But if they keep this up, yeah, I think we're talking about this at the same level as maybe Titans v Rebels, or at least at the very least last season for sure. This is incredible television. I'm loving every second of it.
Yeah, I mean, listen, we're about 10, 11 years into the run of Australian Survivor, and in about 12, 13 runs in US Survivor, we got the infamous Three Amigos Tribal Council. And here we have its facsimile playing out over the course of this episode as Brooke and Keely pull this fake idol, real idol chicanery, and it works. And look, the Three Amigos move did work in the moment, so I don't think they're necessarily out of the woods. But this was a very fun series of events to behold as they were somehow able to wiggle their way through this. I think the key here, Chappelle, the coup de grace was the trickle. Was that you got to really slow play the reveal, right? You don't want to present the final act right up front. You got to save that 11 o'clock number. And so I do think whether they planned it or not, the way this entire routine was rolled out, right? To have Brooke be like, uh-oh, looks like my sweatshirt's too low. Oh, yes, it's a new piece of jewelry. To then have Keely surreptitiously pull hers out. While it was a fun theatrical moment, I do think there's strategic merit in it too, because then everyone has their first round of whispers, which are now requisite at these tribal councils, getting up, talking to one another, figuring out a new plan. And then Keely immediately scuttles those plans. And so I think you're banking on okay, can we scuttle things a second time? Can we re-roll the dice enough times in this perennial game of Yahtzee to try to squeak through? And listen, they did not get the outcome that they wanted, but I would say the primary outcome was to survive the night as a duo, and they certainly did so.
This was so good. It's so good. I don't know. There's so much to talk about. That tribal council is incredible because we know they've created these fake idols. They look pretty good. This one fake idol looks almost identical.
This was incredible. And it makes sense because Keely literally took a prop from set. Yeah. This is not like Bob Crowley. She's like, listen, I saw this thing and I loved how it ended up just working out where it was the symbol of the idol, just what the negative space version of it. It does make me think, Chappelle, not to go full tinfoil buff here. Do you think there's a possibility they planted that to be like, a wise player could probably use this if we make it look somewhat of an authentic idol? If they have a bit of time to just sit on Redemption Beach and wonder how to come back into the game, it could be an easy thing to use.
I don't know if they put that much thought into it, but every season Survivor has almost like a motif that it uses. It feels like the idol was the motif, and then that motif was on other things. If you think back to Winners at War, Adam Klein being like a fleur-de-lis, it was the it's around, but it's like something you could pick up maybe. And so I think that it totally makes sense for you to use this as a fake idol if you can get your hands on something like this. And they still had to deal with the shenanigans of it breaking. They had put the chain across it. And had she just worn the chain, I think there's less question about, is it real? Is it fake? But it breaks. And now Brooke has to almost go into this theater mode of just like, oh yeah, I have it. And it looks janky. There are moments where they're like, you're not really showing it to us. You're not wearing it. It's clear that it broke.
Yeah, Brooke doing the peep show of show it, Brooke. She's like, Yep, that's it. That's all you get.
That's it. But in a weird way, it feels like that benefited her as well because that made them double down on, okay, Brooke's idol is clearly not the right idol, so we'll just pile on to her, not knowing that Keely is about to whip out hers. They're doing the thing. Keely's wearing hers proudly around her neck. Brooke is hiding hers, but it's the fact that she's hiding it that's making them feel more comfortable with voting for her. And they do. They end up piling votes on her. They do a bit of a vote split, which was very smart to do. But at the same time, Keely then playing her idol for Brooke, saving Brooke in this moment, and it was all just really, really fascinating television, some fun strategy there. And these returnees, they're not going to go down without a fight. And I love seeing that.
And also, we should say, I believe, now people might correct me here, Chappelle. Listen, to quote, the not so late great exhibit, yo dog, I heard you like 3-2-1 votes. Well, here's a 4-3-2-1 vote.
4-3-2-1 vote.
I don't think I've ever seen that in Survivor before.
So we got 2 votes on Ben, 3 votes on Blanche, 1 vote on Keely, and then all the rest of the votes were on Brooke, including Simon, the ally here. Now, does it count as a 4-3-2-1 if someone plays an idol to kind of negate those votes?
I usually count the ballots as they were read, not the ones that end up sort of neutralizing out at the end of the day. So plus, again, it's just so much fun to think about the fact that, this concept has been on the air for over 25 years, and now we have an actual 4-3-2-1 vote.
It needed to happen.
Which is just a wild disaster. Okay, so let's talk through, I guess, things from multiple perspectives here. Let's stick on Brooke and Keely, because while obviously the playing up the fake, I mean, it's a little bit of head fake, for lack of a better term, because while maybe, yes, there was some incidental stuff of the prop breaking, again, I don't know if it was Brooke trying to hide it to make sure it wasn't called out as a fake, or her purposely overcompensating to show it was a fake. But it's clear that these rookies did not really think about the idea that Keely could play the idol on Brooke. And so they decide to pile it on her. And then the two of them are standing up there, and they do the whole gift of the Magi, idol exchange here. And I really have to give kudos to Keely in this moment. I cannot imagine how difficult it is to stand up there to be like, there's a very good chance that the split is still 4-3 between the two of us. And so effectively, I am idling myself out of the game. But I wonder if at this point, and we'll certainly get into that with some of Simon's activities, each of these 3 returnee plus members are trying to just figure out like any sort of way they can get another round ahead. The worst that could happen is they get voted out, but that was going to really happen anyway if the cards continue to go the way that they do. So I think it was an incredible risk for Keely to do this, knowing that there was still a chance the votes could bounce back. But oh man, if we ever needed just a proven concept that this woman has nerves of steel, she was able to do it. And as I keep saying, she had her cake and ate it too. Here, she was able to keep Brooke in the game, and the exhale and ecstatic sigh of relief that these two have, I think, was felt by myself, yourself, and a lot of people as, oh wow, okay, Keely and Brooke read this situation perfectly.
All due respect to Mark, now that he's out the way, I kind of love this duo, right? This feels like right.
You're shipping the kaput alliance.
I got to. You have to. With the exception of Simon, because yeah.
He's like kaput.
No, he's not
at this point. I would say
no. He should not be a part of the alliance.
Yeah, his relationship with kaput has gone kaput at this point.
Exactly. This man is not a good ally. Okay, he is not. He is going to throw you under the bus and be very self-interested in a way that Keely was not. I think what the newbies were thinking is they knew that Keely could play it for Brooke, but did they think that she would, right? There's enough information here for her to either save it for herself because she's like, it's very clear that they're going after Brooke, or maybe play it for herself if she's uncomfortable. But she picked the third option, obviously, playing it for Brooke, recognizing that they were going to target her, and then allowing them to potentially win the day if they got that Simon vote along with them. I think they were working on other people as well throughout. I mean, they need to let this Caleb thing go. It's never fetch. Stop trying to make fetch happen. It's not gonna happen. But yeah, had they got Simon to vote with them, I think that puts it at 3 votes on Ben.
So yeah, so that's part of the issue. Well, as we'll get into the decision that Simon made, was that would have then, if Simon doesn't vote for Brooke and does vote for Ben, then it's 3-3 between Ben and Blanche. And so then Blanche is pretty much gonna go. Like, I don't really see. We'll talk about Cameron and Laws's decision earlier in this episode. I don't know if they take the shot at Ben right now. I think one of the reasons why, as I'm sure we'll get into very soon, Ben and Jackson ultimately choose Blanche is it's the supposition of like, okay, if you had to lose one ally, who's the appendix of this human body of an alliance? Who's the person who would cause the least amount of damage if they were no longer in the game? And so I just don't know, as much as Cameron is talking about wanting to make Sue's big move right now, if him and Laws would choose the time to strike right now and flip in a revote scenario. So then I think that, I think that Blanche would be gone then.
But I think that's the wrong move. I think they should flip. Because we see Cameron talking about it so much that I can't let these big guys continue to run the game. They're going to be people that they're not going to look out for me once the numbers start dwindling down. They're all saying it. And so if you have the opportunity to take out Blanche, who's a non-threat, or cut off the head of a snake, potentially giving yourself a little bit more wiggle room to work with, maybe even making some inroads with the returnees. Now you can work with either side a little bit. I think that's probably what you should do if it comes down to 3-3, because who are you betraying at that point, right? Y'all are all aligned. You have to pick a side. I think most people should be looking at Ben as the person to target at that point. Honestly, targeting Blanche sounds crazy if you're thinking like it's a 50-50 between the two of them. We all have to vote for somebody. Yeah, Blanche isn't a huge asset to the alliance, but how strong are these alliances right now? We're in the end game now. This is the time where we're playing a solo game. We should be taking out threats. Blanche is not going to beat you at the end. Somebody said her game awareness was like a fart, in this very episode. And they showed it because we knew she was going home. But that's exactly how I feel. Like, why would you vote out the fart when you could when you can vote out somebody else and then not have to worry about potential challenge beast? Not to say that Blanche wouldn't be. She does look very athletic, but Ben is obviously the challenge guy, right? He was the challenge guy from the very first episode, and now he's the leader of this alliance. He's calling the shots. To me, this is the moment where if you go to that 3-3 split, you flip and you take out Ben and be done with it. And I think that you have the returnees on board with that too. Keely wouldn't be able to vote because she got to vote, right? But she wasn't in the tie.
So it would be a tie between Ben and Blanche. It would be 3-3. So then all three of the returning plus alliance would vote. And then if you add Cameron and Laws onto that, that would be a 5, and there's 8 people voting. So so Ben would go home then.
Right. Why keep Ben around? Who is he? I mean, aside from Jackson, and I guess maybe Cam feels like he's really aligned with them.
That's the thing. I also, again, not to put the cart before the horse, I think we'll get into Cameron, who's finally coming to the forefront, at least a little bit in this episode. I wonder if Simon's a non-starter in this. We've seen Cameron say so many times. Mark even talked about it with me in the exit interview that, like, Cameron felt really burned by Simon because it's the little bit of the scorpion and the frog. Simon did lie to him multiple times, especially as of late. So I wonder if one of the other reasons why they end up ultimately not flipping in this moment is because of the Simon factor. And I do wonder if Simon does get taken out sooner rather than later, would he and Laws be more willing to entertain the notion? Because you see, it's really Keely and Brooke who are going to these people in the scramble. It is not Simon. I think that says a lot.
You could not pay me to work with Simon at this point. Because Cameron said every time I've tried to work with you, every single time. Same thing with Laz. When he comes to her, like, Laz, she's like, are you serious? You can't be effing serious. What happened to Beauty and the Beast? You immediately flipped on us. Immediately. We only were together for one vote. And so, yeah, I wouldn't trust him at all. He knows it. And yeah, I guess if you're trying to make a move, you can't really count on Simon coming with you, because when has he been honest with you thus far? And I mean, look at what he does here. He does not stay with his own alliance in the returnees. He flips. Obviously, having some sense of self-preservation here is not awful, but Simon, you have the necklace. You're flipping and you don't really got to. You can take this risk of going to rocks if it came to it, or whatever the case may be, right? So I don't know. I personally don't mind being a self-interested player, but if nobody can trust you, eventually they're going to turn on you. And it seems like there's not one person in this tribe who should be able to say, I trust Simon. I mean, he has burned everybody.
That's the problem, is that Simon has essentially become a Cook Islands Jonathan Penner, in that he has now at this point basically lied to or betrayed every single person in the game. And it's like Shannon talks about all the time, right? That social game is acquiring capital, then you spend that capital in strategy. It's like Simon got loaded up on his bank card, but then it got stuck in the ATM. Like he's not able to cash anything out because he does make these moves, and we've commended him for it in the Chizzy. So of course he has to betray people along the way. But now he's been in a situation where he has gone to, in particular, Ben and Jackson, who he seemed to have something with Beauty and the Beast. And is like, guys, I'm definitely with you. This time, you're going to look to your right. I'm going to be right behind you on this vote. And last time did not happen whatsoever. And now, or the past two times, I should say. And then, then this time, he does do it. But I think it's just too little too late, to say the least. I just don't understand. When you have Jackson outright saying in confessional, I will never trust a thing this man says again. When Jackson is looking Simon in the eye and saying, I can't actually believe that you didn't know anything about these idols at this point. Simon is very much trying to, he's gone from, I think, playing the I'm with you all to I'm not with them. No, don't you worry. No. You don't need to associate them. I'm with you. Don't you worry. I don't even care. Who are those people? What's Beauty and the Beast? And so I just don't see a world where Ben and Jackson take him back into the fold. Like, yes, Simon didn't vote against Ben in this instance, certainly voted against him last time. And it seems like the only time Simon didn't really, vote with the returnees is when he kind of considered it a sinking ship. Though I will give some credit to Simon here in that he was, despite Jackson's incredulity, it seems like he was actually surprised by all this stuff with the idol. We have not seen him get looped in with any of this idol stuff. It was entirely a Brooke Keeley production. I could imagine he's feeling a certain way about that, of like, why was I not told about any of this? Maybe for them, it was a fear that he was still in with the guys and would try to leak that info, which he might have, considering that he tried to be a rat fleeing the sinking ship at this point, only to turn around and realize that the ship is maybe leaving the dock right now.
They recognize the rat. It's not, it's just good on them being able to say, okay, we can't tell Simon. And he's giving everybody so many reasons not to trust him. Like, not only flipping on his alliances, but they're like, Simon, throw the challenge. Oh, okay. Simon, don't give him your necklace. Oh, okay. Simon, don't do this. Simon, don't do that. He's like, yeah, sure. And he just does what he wants every single time. So I don't see any reason why anybody should trust Simon. But my question for you, Mike, is can he salvage this? Is his reputation so bad right now and lacks so much trust that nobody in their right mind would be willing to work with him long term, that he could get to the end and maybe lose the vote because he's burned so many people? Or is there a merit to being at the bottom? Because I remember Miles, winner of last season, talking to Shannon and saying being at the bottom was beneficial for Miles because then he could see all the pieces. Whereas playing from the top, he really couldn't understand where his position was. Do you see there any merit there for Simon? Can he save his game?
No, I really don't think so. Because here is the issue, is that Miles, yes, I think there is some merit in being able to see all the pieces. And I think certainly, as we saw with Keely and Brooke, there is a sort of like nothing to lose attitude that can allow you to take these big swings, to make these big promises. I feel like Simon is both behaving like he's on the bottom, but also like he was in the swing vote position that he was for most of the game. I think Caroline, brought up these really interesting points in the last podcast we did about how being in the swing vote position is actually maybe a bit overrated because it can draw a lot of attention onto yourself. Hell, we saw it with Caleb when Brooke's like, great job, Caleb. Caleb, you were the one who did this, right? This had your fingerprint all over it. Caleb, Ben, let me just get closer to you so you can hear Caleb did this, right? So I think that Simon is sort of proof positive of that, in that he, yes, was in a very good position in that nobody was coming for him. And he was making all these pivotal decisions at the Asha vote, at the Lottie vote. But then, as a result, because he had two different sides believing they were with him, then one side got very mad at him in particular. And I think something that is also working against him here is the fact that he is a challenge beast. And I do think, especially as you get down to the end game, I do feel like there is a strategy that exists sometimes of like, it's almost like when Sari took out Courtney Merritt in a 3-2-1 vote and not a 4-3-2-1 vote, where it's like, if you are taking up a spot in the end game, that is one less spot for me to occupy. Simon, if you are wearing the necklace and you can't be taken out, that is one less necklace that I can win to keep my ass safe. And so I just feel like Simon's background, despite the fact that his social game is pretty kaput at this point, I just feel like the ways in which he's able to keep himself safe are just way too threatening. And I think especially in a game like this, where things are so fluid and it seems like there's a bunch of inner dynamics forming, it doesn't really seem like anyone wants to play with him at this point. And listen, I'm more than happy to say this, and then tomorrow come back and it turns out that Simon has now built out a new 5-person alliance to steamroll until the end of the game. But this entire episode, we've had people consistently say that they no longer trust him. Chappell, he, at the reward, decides like, all right, everybody, if I can make a speech right now that we're stuffed full of meatballs, do I got a nice spicy treat for you? Hey, does anyone want to go to Rocks? Like, I'm looking for 2 volunteers to go to Rocks, and you know what? I will actually break the rules of Survivor and draw a second rock. So you'll be safe in a rock draw because I am volunteering as tribute.
I have so many thoughts. I love Simon as a character, but as a Survivor player, he is everywhere. He does it all. He does it all. And we've seen so many different facets of Simon. This was Simon playing from the top. Remember, that was his whole redemption thing. It's like, I've never been in a majority alliance. Well, look what you do when you're in it. You know, it's just very funny that you act like this. Yeah, the reward stuff was wild. I really would love to see, because on the one, I would very much hate to find out that in the next episode, Simon has somehow managed to work his way into the new dominant alliance. Just not so much that I don't want Simon to do well, but that I'm looking at everybody crazy. Like, how many times do I have to tell you this? This man cannot be trusted. I want to see Brooke come into the next episode and go to Ben and Jackson and say, oh yeah, Simon totally knew all about this plan. He knew about the idol. It was his idea. You know, at this point, these people should be looking to get him out of the way, especially for the point that you were talking about. Brooke, if you would like to win the necklace, it'd be a lot easier if Simon's not there, right? Yep. And we know Brooke's immunity is a big part of Brooke's game. Simon is such an enigma sometimes when it comes to strategy. I don't know why this man would tell these people that he was up on 99 days. Why would you tell them that? Yeah. Simon had no choice but to win this immunity challenge, because why would you tell them?
This is wild. Like, he's talking confessional about like, I purposely made this gambit with the rocks because I know people wouldn't understand what the actual rules are, which, listen, is like shady, but fair. Also kind of fair, because last season, remember, Brains versus Brawn 2, there was that whole deal with like some of the Brawn women did not know how
go to rocks.
And so I think, honestly, in Australian Survivor, it is something you can lean on more as an argument. But then he follows it up with like, by the way, everybody, I don't know if anyone's counting, but I'm about to reach a big milestone. It's like if you're a cop and you're announcing out loud, like, yep, 2 days until retirement. I don't need to walk into anything with a bulletproof vest, right? Everything is good. Like, these people have returnee blood in their mouths, and you essentially opened up a vein and said, yeah, let me give you a fun reason to get rid of me. You have many other excuses to do so. You nearly got rid of me last time if it wasn't for Caleb stirring up chaos. But hey, let me just provide like a very like lulzy trolly reason to do it as well. It's not like Simon's known for people trolling him or anything over the course of Survivor history. Mm-hmm.
And it's bad for Simon because Simon is a super fan. So he knows that voting people out because of the number of days that he played in the game is Australian Survivor lore.
Hell, the host himself did it, yeah.
Look at the host, Simon. He's right there. I'm like, Simon, you know the rules. You know how this is done. Everybody wanted him to lose that challenge because they wanted to not only take out a returnee, they wanted to take out a physical threat, somebody who is extremely likable, but also they wanted that blood. They wanted to take him out and stop him from reaching 100 days. He was able to get past that. But why did you make life so much harder for yourself by making that a narrative? These people were like, I mean, I wasn't thinking about voting for him, but I mean, shit, now that he's on the table, 99 days, let's shut this down. So he won the challenge, and I will give him all credit in the world for that.
Yeah.
He is a beast.
Especially in the I would say especially in the face of what Laws was doing. But let's face it, that is an awful deal that Laws was trying. It was
crazy.
Broker.
She had to try something, Mike.
I suppose so, but like when you're trying to pull something that like could only trick Jason Siska in Micronesia of like, hey, step down and I promise you're safe. Except this time Laws is making even more of a grandiose prediction of like, no, don't worry, I'll give the necklace to you. What?
Mike, he is the cookie guy.
Yeah, I suppose so, but I think that is honestly, I think what fueled him more. Like, I think like, you think
how
you could
dare you?
With the same
you
trick
think you
again?
can get
I'm
me
staying
with
up
the
here
same?
for twice as long. And it's also not helping when Sally was like really trying to needle him on the side of like, she's a mom. She really wants this.
Yeah. They were playing on his emotions. They know him. They've seen the tape. Okay, Simon, they've seen the footage. They might not know to the day how many days you've played, but they have seen the tail of the tape. They know what gets you. They know you can be a little bit loosey-goosey with the strategy sometimes. You might be able to fall for something like this. They also know you're an emotional guy, right? So they were playing him from all angles. And to your point, I would have been furious if I was Simon, because I see what y'all are doing. How dare you? You
don't even see. Literally at the reward, Caleb says, wouldn't it be funny if we voted you out tomorrow at 99 days?
Simon, the room should have started spinning at that room. The area should have started spinning at that point. He's like, "Oh my god, I've made a grave mistake." Not to make a super recent reference, but you remember that time Mike White was like, "Hey, Christian, you remember Gabby, the thing that she did to you?" And Christian says, "Hey, but you're trying to do the thing that you did to me instead." That's very much what this was giving you, like that energy of just, I know who you are. Let me play on that one thing that makes you tick. But that person could step outside of the moment and see what you were doing, and then that fueled him to do something that was spectacular. Simon does win immunity here, and he needed it because he was going home.
Yeah, and listen, I entirely get it. I get the idea on paper that he's saying, like, I can't just rely on Brooke and Keely. A, apparently they're doing things without me. B, like, I did have something going with Ben and Jackson that I've been trying to work on, albeit breaking my word multiple times. It just comes down to a matter of timing, though. And I just don't believe that Simon really proved his loyalty in this moment. Now, again, I could be incredibly wrong, and Ben and Jackson could be like, hey, Simon, thank you for actually doing this. You're voting with us now. And look, we've certainly seen in times past, like, if you feel like your bottom alliance has splintered, sometimes you just have to, as you mentioned before with the Harry vote Chappelle, do the cheetah strategy of like, as long as it's not me, just got to be faster than one other person. But I just feel like if he wanted to do that, like 2 votes ago could have been the time, right? Like throwing a vote for Mark could have still allowed him to play both sides. Now, granted, yes, the returnees would have been angry at him. I think also losing Mark was a big detriment to Simon's game, because I think one of the reasons why Simon was saved last episode is because Mark suddenly said, everyone basically said, oh yeah, remember Mark? Remember that we should take out Mark? And I think now that he's gone, like, yes, Brooke is this kind of perfect package of a player who's just growing more and more delicious as a target by the day, as she attempted to play a quote unquote third idol, had a third idol played on her. But it just feels like Simon is such a presence as well that I just don't see a world where they like skip him in line if he's not available as a target. And so if it's an eventuality, then why not try something, shake something up, try to gain a new majority rather than trying to make Beauty and the Boys happen?
Is Simon on the Mount Rushmore of Australian Survivor?
Ooh, that is a good question.
Because I can't tell you everybody who is, but I think he's making a good case for himself.
I mean, I think it's tough because you look at, like, I would argue the Mount Rushmore of Australian Survivor. At least some of them were represented on the previous season of Australian Survivor. It's an elite club to join.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, look, you got the Golden God. Okay. I think he's very firmly up there. I think who among us doesn't love Shani? I think that she is one of the faces of the franchise. But who would you have in your third spot?
I think I would
King George.
I think I put George and Luke. I think those would be the 4.
See, and I'm thinking maybe if Simon is able to maybe win this season or have some more shenanigans upon it, I think that 4th spot, Luke's spot, is probably up for debate.
I could see that. I definitely could see that. But it's also, again, I'm more likely to see that than I am Simon being able to survive anytime soon. Like, I don't know, Chappell. Again, I'm definitely going to eat my words like 24 hours from now. But I could see a world where, like, much like Brooke and All Stars, like, this guy has to win out from the final 9 onwards in order to survive. Now, maybe things will get down to a short amount of numbers, and maybe he'll be able to bask in enough safety that, like, people will inevitably turn on one another. I just don't see right now people wanting to have him be a part of their games. And I do think it is this culmination of a lot of these small decisions he's made. And we've certainly acknowledged him in the Chizzy for being in those positions. But I feel like it's a little bit of like death of 1,000 cuts, that now this is kind of the reckoning that he's going to face, which is not really having anybody in his corner.
Can I say something controversial?
Please.
I think, and it might not even be that controversial, I think that Simon could make some more waves, but I also think Brooke made a very good case for her being that 4th spot on that Mount Rushmore, depending on how she does. Okay, because this move, people are going to be talking about this move. Also, as far as immunities go, Brooke's got, a ton of them. She is a challenge beast. I definitely see her going further than Simon right now, just because, both of them are kind of on a chopping block, but I have a little bit more faith in Brooke. And if she can keep this going, it'd be hard to argue against her too. So I think both of them are they're both stars. And I think that's the most fascinating thing about it. We've been talking about this episode for 30 minutes and we're basically like Simon. I know, I
was going to say we went very Simon heavy, but to be fair, there was a lot of Simon going on here. But let's bring things back around to, honestly, the 2 people who are the reason why Blanche goes here, in Ben and Jackson. So the action of this is Brooke pulls out an idol. Jackson clocks that it is a fake. I think this is the 2nd time he does this, right? Like when Mark pulled out Simon's fake idol, then Jackson immediately clocks it as a fake. He just is like that bomb sniffing dog when it comes to it. But then when Keely pulls hers out, they decide to make the move, a correct move of like, okay, assuming there's 3 votes on Ben, we need to put 3 votes on someone from our alliance here. They end up bringing Simon in to just like guarantee essentially that, like, now they didn't think that Brooke's idol was real, so maybe they just wanted to like have him kind of screw over that plurality. But they decide on Blanche. Chappell, I don't know if I like this decision.
Ooh, okay. You don't like this decision for Ben and Jackson?
Yeah, it's tough. Like, I understand first off, it's a fundamental misread, right? For them to be like, Keely won't use the idol on Brooke. She's going to use it on herself. So let's not even bother. Like, I think the choice of Blanche is interesting. Like, I think especially they end up saving Ben here by putting 3 votes onto somebody else. It's just a big question mark for me because, to be honest, Blanche is a big question mark for me. Like, it seemed like if I'm trying to really put the microscope on whatever the hell this majority newbie alliance is, you have Laz and Cameron, who seem like a locked-in duo. The 2 of them literally said, like, we're going to make all these decisions in tandem together. They are being pitched as a duo. You have Sally, who I'm not entirely sure, like, she was kind of working with Ben as part of Johnson and Friends, but she's pretty much a free agent because she was so anti-Mark to the point where she's gloating in the shelter that Mark is not here. Like Good Morning World and all that are in it except for Mark. Blanche is someone who maybe it comes down to also like the whole Baron 2.0 stuff that I guess Blanche was anti-Ben, right? Like kind of threw Ben and Brooke under the bus. But it seems like they were in lockstep there. So I'm looking at like, should they have gotten rid of Caleb?
I don't think that's a bad idea. Caleb, although he has not flipped on them yet, he's flirting with the idea.
Yeah.
Jackson doesn't even like Caleb. I mean, maybe they bonded in the last few days, but anytime we get a shot of either of them, you see them being like, I hate that guy. I think there was even a moment where Keely and Brooke and potentially Simon, I don't remember, go to Caleb like, hey, don't you want to get out Jackson? He's kind of like, maybe, and as much as you can believe Caleb, but yeah, I think that if anybody's going to flip and try to take you out, it's definitely him. I think there's a world where Cameron does as well. Or at least he talks about it throughout this episode. So I have to believe him because he said it. But yeah, I think that Blanche is not threatening. And I think maybe that's why we're looking at this. Like, is this the most optimal move for anybody, considering she's so not threatening? Whereas, like, is Blanche going to rally the votes against you? Probably not, right? But Caleb might. And I don't know. I don't really have a huge issue with it. But I do think that if we're looking for a more threatening player, Caleb is probably him.
Yeah, I think it depends on, honestly, what their MO of this vote was. If the idea is just pure war, right? It's our alliance versus your alliance. If we are forced to discard someone, let's get rid of the weakest link in the chain. And sorry, Blanche, if you were taking credit for the Mark boot because you and Johnson, not Jackson, Johnson started the Mark train in episode 2 of this show, you may be a few steps behind, delightfully aloof in what's going on in this game. So maybe if they feel like, okay, we want to have the most optimal soldiers, the most sharpened minds to take on this opposition, considering everything they're pulling out of their pockets, then maybe getting rid of Blanche would be the choice. But I just feel like, as you mentioned, and especially we got a little bit of a tease in this episode of Ben and Jackson, especially Jackson, acknowledging the fact of, hey, we're gonna be sort of like, we're not up to bat when it comes to being a target, but we're definitely in the batting circle. We're on deck right now. And so I think they need to start thinking about the idea. Now, I do think that, this group of 3 is, and maybe one of the reasons why they strip Simon away is because it is pretty formidable as a 3, as a block, especially at the final 9, final 8. But I think if they are looking to preemptively make moves, now maybe they have also bonded with Caleb in a way that they feel like they can trust him. It's a lot of suppositions to make, but we know Australian Survivor likes to do that. I just feel like if Caleb is the one, and maybe there was a little bit of stoking that green-eyed monster of Ben, like, oh my God, Caleb was the one who took credit for it. He does seem like he's fine with it at the end of like, listen, I'll take credit for the move when I'm sitting in those final 2 seats. So I'm fine to let Caleb take the blow now. Why not have him take the blow now? Get rid of Caleb so that then you are able to claim ownership of that. You're able to get rid of someone who could be a problem later on. And theoretically, if and when this newbie alliance goes to war, is he someone that's going to necessarily be in your corner? So if you're going to take the opportunity to shed somebody, why not take care of that problem later now?
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. Ben is being almost presented as a front runner the way the stories are edited, and it's very weird because there's so many people talking about potentially voting out Ben. Who do you think is the front runner of the game at this point? Because right now it looks like everybody's racing for an end game that I don't really see someone who's far and away, playing better than everybody. Because even with Brooke and Keely, they did a great thing, but they're way at the bottom of this alliance. And I don't know. I mean, maybe it's too early to be looking at that, but I don't know who is in the best position to win right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you talk about like, oh, we're approaching the end game now. We just reached the final 9.
Yeah.
There are still 7 votes, maybe even 6 votes to get to the end game here. And this season has showed there's a lot of game to play in between these rounds. I'm going to discount the edit thing because there's been plenty of talk as well about the story. And I think certainly has coalesced around a couple people, Simon, Caleb. I mean, I think Caleb, especially not going here, is in a good position. Like, I feel like he's friendly enough with everybody. I think he does make a good move and outright telling Brooke ahead of time, like, I'll be honest with you, I can't vote with you. And I don't know if Brooke just predicted it because of Cameron's choice of sweatshirt, but she's like, yeah, it's okay. I understand. So it's not like he's burned anybody in the way Simon has, in the way that he has been flipping. Ben, I do feel like sooner or later they are going to come for him. It reminds me again a little bit of, and I evoked this comparison before, like Josh in Blood versus Water, where like all of a sudden this guy goes from a purple edit to like becoming one of the front runners and one of the architects of the latter portion of the season. And so from that perspective, I do have some stock in Jackson from a game perspective. Because I think that Jax is kind of perfectly nestled right now as Ben's reliable number 2. Now, there could be a situation where, like, if Ben wins immunity and they're targeting him, then they just go for Jackson next. But otherwise, Ben is his shield. And I think he does have a good game sense about him. He kind of has, since he's gotten some people around him at the swap. And I think that he sort of is like an advanced version of Cameron in that he's able to make these reads at Tribal Council and actually have the social cachet to be able to enact moves around those observations.
He'd be a very fun winner. We saw him doing stuff in the pre-merge. Obviously, he's got some big names on his mantle that he's taken out. If Jackson is to win this game, I mean, he gets credit for the Harry thing, in a lot of ways, and then being able to bounce back from that. Remember, he was at the bottom, and so for him to now have made it to this point is very impressive. And also, speaking of Jackson, I had a Scott Green moment, if you will, do in the middle of the episode, because why was Ikea sponsoring the meatballs? I said, oh, Ikea sell meatballs? Again, Scott Green moment. I was like, oh, I'm sure they just sponsor whatever the challenge is, throw some money at it.
You would know they sell meatballs. Those are premium munchies at Ikea.
I mean, the way I was looking around, like, do I need to get to Ikea for some meatballs? They had every kind of meatball you would want, and then they also had vegan meatballs that nobody wanted. Jackson and I might have some shared DNA.
That's interesting, yeah, because, like, listen, as someone who frequently visits Ikea, I feel like the assortment of meats used for their meatballs are not nearly as vast as was what prompted here. I don't know if Ikea premium chefs were whipping up, specialty varieties of all these different types of meats. Like, all I know are just sort of like the degular meatballs slopped with too much gravy and a side of frozen peas. I mean, this also truly is a sign, Chappell, and I talked about this even with, like, the Zach Brown reward on the B&B this week, that, like, Survivor is the place to go if you're a brand, because it is the most captive audience you could ever have. These people were melting down over Ikea meatballs, which is advertised, I think, more so for its price than its quality. Like, I remember I talked with Jason from Survivor 49, and he was talking about, like, yeah, he always would study for his law degree at Ikea because they would have super cheap meatballs, so you could just, like, load yourself up with protein and then study your face off without breaking the bank.
I always think of Ikea and I think furniture, and everybody else thinks food, and I've just been doing Ikea wrong, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps. I'm not entirely sure. So I'm trying to think about what else we want to go through with this tribal council. I mean, do you think that they should have stuck with Keely here? Do you think that they should have, like, called the bluff for what it was? Say, okay, we either get rid of Brooke or we get rid of Keely here, and try to flip Simon to make sure there's not 3 votes on Ben.
I mean, they lose. I mean, they don't lose Blanche if they do that, right? Like, they if they stick to their guns, then they do at least get Keely out. Which, I mean, she's not working with you anytime soon. She's got a cool story too. All of her, forensic crime background, that kind of stuff is really cool. Her and I talking about the counterfeits.
I love evil Keely talking about, like, the Kaput Alliance is all about lying and cheating and manipulation and blowing things up. And it's like, have you met Caleb? He kind of seems like he'd be perfect for the Kaput Alliance.
They're trying to get Caleb. It can't be. You can't. If you're aligned with the returnees, you can't trust that man. He did not come here to get second place to somebody who's already played the game before. But yeah, getting Keely out wouldn't be awful. But I do think this pair of Keely and Brooke, if Ben and Jackson are looking to hide a little bit longer, right, because they know their names are going to come up eventually, then maybe it's not the worst thing in the world to have this shield of people. Yeah. Now we can still galvanize the troops against them. The same people who we're going to flip against, who are talking about coming after us, they're talking about coming after us after the returnees are gone. So maybe we need Brooke and Keely. I mean, she's not returning, but by proxy, and Simon to go a little bit later. We've seen the meat shield strategy used before, and it's not like they did it on purpose, but it could benefit them for when people are looking for who to target. You can say, I mean, you could target us, but we're working together. And you really want to lose to Brooke? She's going to win immunity. You really want to lose to Simon? I mean, look at what Brooke just did at this tribal council. You really going to let her get further in the game? They could function and even Keely, right? They could function as somebody who could at least distract you from taking a look at the bigger picture and then coming for some of these big strong guys.
The only downside I would see of that is that the meat shield strategy has an implication that the person who is shielding you is also working with you. These
Yeah.
meat shields have spikes facing both inward and outwards. They are
Hmm.
self-hurting meat shields, being like, yes, you are essentially protecting us and that you're bigger targets. We're bigger targets than you, but also we want you out. And I think that's very tough because it seems like Brooke and Keely are not relenting on getting rid of Ben anytime soon. And I just feel like if you keep coming for Ben enough times, then you might get a Cameron, a Laws. It seems like next episode, maybe even a Jackson, maybe even a Caleb to be like, you know what? Yeah, Bennett's got a little too big for his britches. Yeah, let's join you. So I do agree that I think that, and maybe that's another reason again why Simon's eager to flip on these two is because maybe the fact that they are a duo is more threatening than just him as a single player. But
Hmm.
I feel like that concept of a meat shield is kind of undone when those people who you are trying to kind of protect for your own image are actively coming after you.
Yeah, and they might not be a shield, but I mean, if these they keep calling them passengers, if the passengers start to rise up to overcome, they're gonna need numbers. And if you're gonna combat that, you're gonna need numbers too. So I mean, we saw kind of this fake little olive branch in this episode where Jackson comes to them like, hey, what if it was us versus these other guys?
The
And
beautiful five.
right, the beautiful five. And although it sound,
Man, Mark's absence was definitely felt when it came to naming some of these alliances this episode.
everything used to have such a tight name and all this other stuff, and now Mark's gone and it's just going to shit. But they come together for a brief moment. They kind of talk about it, but I don't think it'd be the worst thing in the world, right? If you know that they're gonna come for you at some point, you
It's a
need
little
allies.
it's a little lions and hyenas from Winners at War, right? It's a little bit of
Hmm.
like, and again, I could see a world where maybe Ben and Jackson do that, where they're like, hey, there's more of them than they are of us. If they get rid of a Simon and there's 8 of them left, like maybe they flip over to the other side, force this rock draw that Simon was advertising so much about, which was again also wild because like if you're making that grandiose offer, I feel like you're doing it in private. You're like finding the particular people to do it. I feel like it's low key insulting to be like, any takers, anybody at all want to publicly join my alliance?
Simon don't give a damn. Simon don't give a damn. He got that hair, that jawline, and all these immunity necklaces. He just does what he wants. When he's sitting on the beach talking, and I think Sally walks over, he go, Sally, could you leave so I can plot against you? She go, okay, y'all. Simon don't want you going over there. Laws ignores this advice, goes over there, and Simon's like, no, seriously, she wasn't joking. Get away from me. And so he's a wild man. Seeing Simon win this game would be hilarious.
Yeah, and again, on the one hand, you'd be like, oh my god, like what people are saying to your face and behind your back, like how could a jury vote for you? But again, in a season that it had faith in such a powerful position before she's taken out, like I can't necessarily take at face value what I would find absolutely wild things said to my face, because for all we know, that's just sort of the timbre of sense of humor that a lot of this cast has. That Sally's laughing off like, you told me to get out as soon as I sat down with the coconut.
Yeah, I wonder if this is going to like maintain kind of the energy that it has. Like you just mentioned Faith, right? That was such a big moment, and now I'm thinking, is that a top 3 moment of the season? There's so many moments, and so I don't know if we're gonna eventually get to the end, and it's like we've had so many big moments that we're like, okay, the final 3 is like Sally and Cam and Laz, and it's like, how do we get there? The bodies that we've left in our wake to make that happen.
Yeah.
But I think it'd be so much fun to watch, right? I think there's something there as far as like just the television value of this has been such an unpredictable game. And despite all these wild things that are happening, it's still fun to watch. And for me, that's the most important thing, right? The strategy be damned. Shannon's not here, so I can say that. Strategy be damned. If the show is good, it's good, and I'm having a great time watching it.
It's incredibly entertaining, where even if, we get a sense from the next time on, like, oh my God, they're going to try to do something with this fake idol and this real idol. I did not expect it to go the way that it did. I would have just thought like, okay, they're going to call their bluff and, be able to split the votes the way they intended. And one of these two is going to go home, rinse, repeat. Let's cleanse the returnees. But then to have Ben and Jackson pivot on the spot and be able to perfectly work out a way where Ben survives by just 1 vote and flip Simon over to their side, and albeit a bad read on, an idol not being played on Brooke, shows that there's still some fun to be had over the course of this season. If you're Brooke and Keely, where do you go from here? What's the optimal move next episode to make sure that you survive? Is it as simple as just throw Simon under the bus?
Absolutely. I think you come out swinging against Simon right here, because again, these big men, they're going to want to survive too. They're in survival mode. You're in survival mode. Simon could win immunity, but if he doesn't, yeah, why would you come after us? We're willing to work with you to take out Simon. You cannot trust Simon. He is a challenge beast. He does have that jawline and that beautiful hair, so I mean, yeah, you could come after one of us, but do you really want to risk that again? Do you want to risk us making you look crazy again when we're telling you right now Simon can go? And I think you could pitch that to Jackson and Ben, but you could also pitch that to Sally. You could pitch that to Cam, who is really just loyal to soil for Simon at this point, where that would be heavily contested. I think that you can throw a vote out here, and if somebody doesn't necessarily like it or want to go in a different direction, like we've seen with Caleb when it came to the Mark vote, then yeah, it might blow up. But with Simon, you pitch that at the last minute. They love a good tribal council pitch. Like, we'll tell you at tribal council, they love one of those moments. You pitch it to on Simon, and I don't think too many people are gonna put their foot down on it.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that we might get, despite how divided the votes have been the past couple of episodes, this could be an easy pseudo-unanimous consensus opinion, right? Because again, this is someone who has burned everybody. I'll go back to Jonathan Penner and Cook Islands, where yet again, it was the I2s versus the other side. I was trying to forget the alliance at this point. Not Row 2. RHAP 2, maybe? No, not, yeah, maybe something like that. But
I don't, now you're going to make me look it up.
Exactly. But essentially, it was this idea
Taki?
that... no, not Taki. It was...
I2 Taki?
It was Raro. It was
Raro.
Yeah. But basically, it was this idea at a certain point that's like, look, let's just put down all our guns. Can we agree that this person's just incredibly unreliable to work with? And so I certainly think from, an anybody but me perspective, that's the move to make for Brooke and Keely. And it might be the move to make for Ben and for Jackson as well. Like you said, there might be some merits to keeping Brooke and Keely around as a duo. If you are the big boys, you're getting rid of a fellow big boy who might be a threat in challenges. And you're ultimately, would you want to keep in somebody who keeps making you promises, and sometimes he delivers on them, and sometimes he doesn't? It's just way too much of a wild card scenario. So I agree, and that's what makes me feel a little, sad for our boy. I think his days might be numbered, but he got past number 100, which is quite a feat in and of itself.
Yeah, especially when he told everybody, hey guys, I'm creeping up on number 100.
He's keeping it 100, Chappell.
Yeah, there's a time and a place.
And also loved David's line of, immunity's
got problems.
Not problems, but immunity's not one, Simon. Like, good. I like that. All right, yeah. Chappell, shall we get to our own countdown here? Not a 4, 3, 2, 1, but a 3, 2, 1 in the form of the Chizzy.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, take it away, James Peter Weinstein and MC Kala.
2, 3. 1, 3. It's getting kind of chizzy. 3, 2, 1.
There's a lot of places to go here, Chappell. You have one side that technically won in getting rid of Blanche. You had a minority that sort of won in that they survived, but they also didn't get the person they wanted out. So where are you going here?
This is easy, but I'm making it harder for myself, because these points to me, in whatever order I decide, are going to Ben, Keely, and Brooke. I just haven't figured out exactly where I want to put Keely and Brooke, because I think them surviving this was incredible. I think it was great TV. I think the play was good. So I have to give them either 3 or 2 points here. But I am going to give Ben 1. I'm going to start with the 1 this time, because I'm giving it to Ben because he saved his ass. It was a beautiful pivot. It could have been bad. Yeah, I could quibble with who they ended up voting out in Blanche, and them not necessarily being able to get Keely, but they made this happen at Tribal Council. And I have to give them credit for this, because if they don't do something, it could very well have been him. And so I'll give him credit for that. Now, with Keely and Brooke, Keely plays the idol on Brooke correctly, and I want to give her credit for that. Although she was not going home, she did save her ally. Now, on the flip side, Brooke got the idol played on her. And so I don't know if I want to give her more credit for convincing Keely to do that, or Keely more credit for actually doing it. Because Brooke did kind of botch the fake idol thing. You know, it broke. Not so much her fault. Keely made it. So if I'm going to fault somebody for making a faulty idol, it's Keely. You know, do better. But I don't know. This was incredible.
She was
TV.
using the other end of the ladle for the well as a hammer.
It was incredible. She was so good.
Yeah, I know that you know, piece of parlance in Simon's area, right, is like a bad craftsman blames his tools, but you kind of got to blame the tools in this one.
Look, I'm splitting hairs here, okay? So Keely, step it up. No, I'm joking. She's just so good. So I want to, you know, she made that thing, and so I want to give her credit for that. This is tough because they're both so good, but I think for me, Keely is the narrator of this entire exchange, and so she's gonna get 3. Brooke gets 2, and Ben gets 1.
Listen, I know that was hard for you, but it'll be easy for me when it comes to tabulating because I completely agree. I will co-sign all of those. Yet Keely was one of the easiest ones for me at the 3, just because, like you said, she made the fake idol. And yes, you know, she was going back and forth about who to play on, but she did have the correct read that, okay, Brooke, you're the one in trouble. Brooke actually said, like, if you feel in trouble, like, don't worry, you don't need to play it. So I actually feel like Brooke may have taken her foot off the gas there for a second. But Keely makes the right decision at kind of like every juncture. Yes, you could give demerits to her and Brooke for ultimately not getting rid of Ben and for losing Simon in that moment. But at the end of the day, I think their first and foremost job in this episode was to make sure the 2 of them survived after losing kind of both of their number 1 allies at this point in Mark. And they did so with flair. And so I give Keely 3 and I give Brooke 2. Like you said, Brooke is not the one to, you know, she sort of gets these idols gifted to her, but I think that speaks to her relationship with Keely. And I think she's able to play it to a certain extent as well. I think she's being coy enough at Tribal Council where it does kind of get in people's heads a little bit. And also, like, not for nothing, again, if Simon had not won immunity, she would not have been going home. And so it goes to show that she is somehow not presenting as this like massive threat over someone like Simon. And I will give Ben the 1. Also should note for Brooke and Keely as well, like they were actively trying to make moves to flip a Cameron, to flip a Laws, to flip a Caleb, which I think again shows the relationships that they had at least tried to bank on a little more than Simon, who has tried to do so, but is a little unfortunately socially bankrupt at this point. And the 1 point goes to Ben because yes, he was 1 vote away from going, but that kind of earns the point more for me in that he was able to mobilize these votes. He literally, like, while he's talking with some of these people about how to rearrange the votes, he literally says, like, if you are trying to do the split between Brooke and Keely and we get it wrong, I am gone. And so it does show that as much as there's been this talk about this, like, hodgepodge of an alliance, he was able to convince people to be able to amass enough numbers to protect him, even if it involved a last-minute pivot. I obviously take a couple points away because he does ultimately have the misread of Brooke having the fake idol and so piling the votes on top of her. And I still disagree with choosing Blanche over especially someone like Caleb, who has more appeal as someone to take out in the immediate future. But he kind of, I guess I'm going to use a phrase that I attributed to Mark, one of his rivals once upon a time. He just keeps getting away with this. He has now survived essentially 3 tribals in a row where he was at least one of the targets going in from the minority. That train might stop sometime soon. But for now, Davo is having a great time. Did he make he did a "we got him" joke? Is that
yeah? Like, I didn't even know the Australians knew that one. You know, like that's just such a
they know the SEAL Team 6.
Yeah, they're locked in. Yeah, Ben has crazy court vision. You know, he can see everything that's going on at the tribal council. Every time there's something happening, he's like, I think that idol's fake. I think that idol's real. I think we should do this because it'll save me. Like, he was watching from home. He was really kind of just in a fugue state a little bit. And it was fun to see.
And for what it's worth, again, for like the 3rd week in a row, he was able to get all these people together and like, okay, guys, huddle, 4-3 split. And then he was able to then get up, move around to all these people and make a 4-3 split happen without A, the target knowing in Blanche, the new target, and B, despite all the chaos going around him, despite 2 idols seemingly being brought out, he was able to point the people in the directions that he wanted to go Whether or not you agree with that direction is one thing, but I do want to commend him a bit and give Jackson an honorable mention as well for the power they were able to exercise in that last minute pivot.
Yep. I'm so excited to see what happens next.
Yes, exactly. Well, Chappell, in the meantime, who the hell knows what this season is going to be by the time we check back in next week. But if people want to check out all the stuff that you are doing out there on the internet, how can they do so?
They can go to my website, recapkickback.com. It's where you'll find all the podcasting that I'm doing over on my channel. You can check out my YouTube channel, of course, youtube.com/@recapkickback to see all of my content right now. Chantel and I are still talking about I Love New York. She's never seen it before, so I have to walk her through these crazy moments. And you think these people are nuts, go back and watch I Love New York, and I will show you some insane folks. Sarah Carradine and I are talking about jury duty, something I know you're talking about over on Recap Kickback. G and I are still talking about Abbott Elementary. And then Mari and I were joined by Jason Reed to talk about Cross this last week. This week, we'll be talking about Beauty and Black on Netflix with Matt Scott. And so we got a lot of cracked behavior going on Recap Kickback, but you got to subscribe to catch it all.
Well, we shall see if the cracked behavior continues on Australian Survivor Redemption. Thank you all so much for listening. This was yet another very fun episode to talk about. I kind of feel bad about us talking a lot about Simon, but again, I feel like this maybe was a culmination, I think, of a lot of his storyline building to this point. I would love to see if he can get out of this one tomorrow yet again, but we shall see if more spanners get thrown into the works here, and if Keely can use that spanner to maybe build another idol with a chain intact. This was an Off the Chain podcast. Hope you all enjoyed. I'll be back tomorrow. Also, reminder, it is Sunday, Monday, Wednesday this week for Australian Survivor. Sunday, Monday, Wednesday. So set your DVRs and your podcast catchers of choice appropriately. But no matter what, I'll be back in your eyes and ears talking about Australian Survivor as it airs. Thank you all again so much for listening. Until tomorrow, everybody, take care. Bye-bye.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.